You are listening to Something Rather Than Nothing. Creator and host, Ken Volante. Editor and producer, Peter Bauer.
So are you in Chicago now?
Yes.
So of course Quimby's bookstore over there in Chicago you have, right?
Yeah, I worked there for 6 years.
Okay. The Something Rather Than Nothing podcast zine made it onto the shelves a few months ago.
Oh my God, that's
wonderful
great.
store. I watch so everybody, Quimby's bookstore in Chicago, one of the most amazing places I've ever seen in my entire life. Amount of zines and small publishing and just incredible variety of everything. I was there, Corinne, and I found a book called Kathy Acker in Seattle. I adore Kathy Acker. Yeah, I adore Kathy Acker.
Awesome.
And it kind of talked about her time in Seattle and around Riot Girls and like the scene that was going on there and some of her influence within it. And around that time, I was talking to Mark J. Palm and just kind of connecting more and seeing like a whole kind of scene over that way. So I just thought it was just so great that a bookstore has a book like Kathy Acker in Seattle and just kind of led me on a path to really explore, just a whole scene. But you worked there for 6 years. Probably a quick, weird question, but what was your experience like?
Oh my God, I love Quimby's. It's one of my favorite places on earth. I'm really good friends with my boss. She's worked there for, over 2 decades as the manager, Liz Mason, and I love her, my coworkers. It's retail, so it has its ups and downs, but I always looked at it as if I'm going to work a retail job, that's pretty much the best it's going to get. And I had a really wonderful experience. I learned so much and just deeply inspiring to see all the zines and books and everything roll in every week. That's one of the things I miss the most about not working there is just having access to all that new material for, inspiring art creation.
Yeah, they do a great Saturday morning. Well, it's Saturday morning out in the Pacific Northwest. It might be like noon or 1 o'clock, like every week of what's new. And it's like 15, 20. Talk about a great use of like, social media because it's like late Saturday morning cartoons here for me, like it's a late morning, just like watching all this new stuff. I don't catch it every week, but it's like now I know what's in Quimby's, like that week. And it has this kind of fresh and vital feel to it,
Hell yeah. So Liz and I, well, it was Liz's idea, of course. She's the manager. We started that during the pandemic together. And then, of course, when I left, there's new fabulous people doing it. And it's such a great resource because that way it's like going to give you ideas of what you want to pick up from the store, what new zines, comics, and books are out there. So they do such a great job. It's really a treasure for the community. Chicago's incredibly lucky to have Quimby's bookstore.
Amen on that. Everybody, we're talking with Corinne Halbert, and I want to tell you about her. She has a short bio, but I love the bio because I read the bio and I started jumping probably. Corinne Halbert is a psychedelic horror artist with an extensive book collection. Her work is heavily influenced by an avid obsession with 1970s cult films and vintage comics. She is the creator of Acid Nun. All right, that's how you write an intro. And love it. And then I had encountered Acid Nun before, but just for me, getting closer to your art and looking at it, the color, the wildness, I adore strange movies. I adore comic books. I adore Garbage Pail Kids. I adore vampires and fangs and it's all there somehow. And we started
Yeah.
talking, and it's Quimby's, and one of my favorite places in the world as well. And you're from Massachusetts. I'm from Rhode Island. So here we go.
Heck
Corinne
yeah.
Halbert, great to have you on.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
All right. So when people see your stuff, or they're talking about, your art, they're talking about Acid Nun. What's Acid Nun, and where did it come from?
Oh man. So I have been doing my own zines and comics since approximately 2009. So, we're working on about 14 years here. I've self-published over 30, somewhere around 30, zine comic type booklets. Some of those have been collaborations with other people, such as my husband, Scott R. Miller. We've done a few zines together. And I'm a real slow and steady wins the race kind of gal. And I when I was a child, I was absolutely obsessed with all cartoons. I mean, anything with like really intense graphic black line work, and then of course the color. But with comics, I love black and white comics and color comics. But one of the things that draws me in is the line work. And so I love the aesthetic of comics and cartoons. I have really been obsessed with them since childhood. And so Acid Nun sort of came about. It took about a year and a half for me to complete it. It started out as self-published individual comic issues 1 through 3, a trilogy. And the reason I did that was because breaking it down into smaller pieces is what made it easier for me to actually accomplish the task of doing a graphic novel. So the whole time I planned it to be, a collected story, my first graphic novel. And I was lucky enough to start working with Silver Sprocket on it. They're an incredible publisher. I love everything they put out is just fantastic. They are the bomb. And they were just a joy to work with. I worked with an incredible editor, Ari Yarwood, which was really awesome experience. And I think the book is all the better for that, having an editor. And it's fiction, it's fantasy, but there are some autobio threads in there. And long story short, I've had a lot of tragic familial deaths at a very young age. And then in 2019, my stepfather, who was like basically my favorite person on planet Earth, just died all of a sudden. And
gosh, yeah.
It just like ripped open all the grief I hadn't, wasn't able to process, because the other deaths of my father and my grandmother happened when I was very young, and so it just sort of compounded into this. I got to a very dark place. And, I started having to do some serious work on myself. And within that process, that's sort of how Acid Nun started. There's some other artists that I greatly look up to. I don't know if you're familiar with Matthew Allison. He did a book called Cancor, which I think he's one of the best artists working right now. He's brilliant. And, there's some other sources of inspiration, like the comics and weird movies. And I went to Catholic school, and, it all sort of collided together to just like needing to make this story as sort of a part of my own catharsis.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I could really feel what you're saying of like at that moment, somebody that important to you, and the other things you didn't experience in the same way because you're so young. And I think what would come up, or what you drop into as an artist, there has to be so important, whether the images are confusing or clear, or what you need to get out or put out there. I think that's the challenge. And whatever that content was for you, amen, just incredible to you to do that, to be like, this is what that is. I think and talking to a lot of artists, I think part of the struggle, and I even say for myself, is sometimes the what and the how that comes out, you'd be like, I can't even. But I think when you create into something like you have, it's just that much more. So
Thank you so much. Yeah. And it's there's more to it than just the familial deaths, there's other stuff that is unfortunately over my years of, sort of spinning on, fight or
it's
flight
tough.
or whatever you
Yeah,
want to
it's
call it, getting myself into some situations in relationships that, were pretty traumatizing. So it's all in there, and but I thought it was really important to make it. I want it to be a story of triumph and sort of pulling yourself out of a dark place,
yeah,
because I just think a lot of people out there suffer from various levels of mental illness, anxiety, depression, all these things, prolonged grief, delayed grief. And I was hoping to make a story that could help people not feel so alone in that space, and because like healing, the concept of healing is very important to me. It's important to me on a personal level and
yeah.
on a community level as well. And I've had a lot of people reach out to me, saying that the book meant a lot to them in that capacity, and that's basically, all I could ever ask for.
Yeah. Well, and thank you for that, and thank you. I mean, one of the things in talking about art and creating, and where great things come from, they very much can come from that, and so I appreciate you talking about it. It's very much part of how we do things. So
Thanks so much.
yeah, I just so, and the thing is too, there's this kind of these things I've been into, like looking more at cult films. I had a guest on the show, Dakota New, and I just kind of follow some of his weird movie suggestions. I've dropped into like found footage channel
Oh,
on
nice.
YouTube. Oh
Yeah.
my god,
My husband works with those guys. He does strange tapes.
oh my, okay, I don't even know. I gotta run backwards here to go forwards. I knew this was gonna happen 2 or 3 times. You and I creating this thing, we can do whatever the heck we want. So I'll just say for myself, I out here, both myself and maybe some other people I'm coming in contact with, really dropping in freely to found footage, zines about strange movies, reading deeply into these bizarre things that have been created, weird books, all this incredible stuff. But I couldn't believe how much absolutely hilarious material in the found footage
Oh, yeah.
that was there. I'm gonna like I haven't watched it this week, but I realized I had a difficult week and I got to have it on for 2 hours because I laughed my ass off,
Oh
and I
my God, they have
recognized
the
some of the
best.
stuff, like some of the stuff from the 80s is like a little too close for me. So so he works on tell me again, he works on
Well,
the
so he does a zine called Strange Tapes, and then he has a YouTube show also called Strange Tapes. And so they have started branching out, and they have I can't remember the person's name. They have somebody Midnight Rentals. They have a couple other sort of sub shows
I watch
that
them. I
they,
watch them all. I watch them
yeah,
all. I
they're
got
bringing
I
more
got the
people in the
zines in the
fold.
back corner of this room are the zines. It's
Oh, awesome. Yeah, so he'll do it's been about once a month, he'll do a new Strange Tapes YouTube show, and
yep.
then they air it on the Found Footage Festival channel, and then he has special guests and interviews people. I was on an episode that was really fun. I pretended to be him. I wore like a beard.
I got my homework today.
It was really funny.
Wow. Thank you for opening up all these doors for listeners and myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
As we go along here, plenty to drop in and out of. Let me ask. Let's like, to make it completely legit, ask one of the bigger questions. I wanted to ask you, talking about your experience of producing Acid Nun and your art, everything that you put into it. But I wanted to ask you, what is art? What do you think art is?
It's such an interesting question, and it's such every artist person you talk to could potentially give you a different answer, and I don't think any of them are necessarily right or wrong. For me, it's a lot of things. It's a form of communication. It is getting in touch with my subconscious, making the things within my subconscious become conscious. It's therapeutic. It's joy. It's toil. It's pain. I mean, it's everything. It's like the whole full spectrum of the human experience. And I have been drawing and painting my whole life. I started drawing when I was like 3, and I was very avid about it all through childhood.
Wow.
In high school, knew I wanted to go to art school. I had a brief period of time. I read all these Madeline L. Engel books when I was a child. And there was like this short period of time where I wanted to be a marine biologist. Because, I grew up on the East Coast, a lot of Cape Cod activity. But it was always artist, and then I went to get my, undergrad at my BFA at Massachusetts College of Art. And I actually got that in film video. And that's where I was able to work with amazing teachers, Saul Levine and Mark Lepore, 2 of my favorite teachers of all time. Mark is no longer with us, sadly. But they started to introduce me to like weird movies, high art movies, Jean Cocteau, Maya Deren, all the just full spectrum of, avant-garde.
Yeah.
Stan Brakhage, all that stuff. And then I took a few years off, and I knew I wanted to go to graduate school because initially I wanted to teach art on a college level. And, things sort of changed for me in that department. So, I mean, maybe someday, but I'd like to do that maybe when I'm like older. But I got my MFA in painting and drawing at School of the Art Institute, and that's what brought me out to Chicago.
And yeah, that's incredible. Once you said the film and video, I could see in my head the that some of those panels are totally film stills that you do. And I hadn't until you said that, I didn't pick up on what I was seeing, but then I was like, oh my gosh, those are film stills. So I can see that now. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and the connection between film, screenwriting, when they do the the artwork that they base the scenes on, and comics, it's like so connected in terms of storytelling. So it's really, I feel it's really great that they feed into each other.
I thought that's so helpful to point out because, like I said, I could pick up and see. And I think I was much younger when I first realized the dynamic of the still versus that within motion, and recognizing my adoration of Stanley Kubrick was that there were so many museum photos in the movie, and they were strung together. Like there were so many beautiful photos that he saw in absolute clarity, like that image. And then you would have what I think is the revelation is that these are strung together and start to look like, that's the piece for me, recognizing the still and then that. And I love that because I love film and I love the panels that you peel through. Right. So it's, how do I do it?
No, I that's why, in my bio, I have the thing about, having the book collection and my obsession with, cult film, horror film, just cinema in general, because all that stuff I use for references in my work. And it's, it all feeds together. All those interests, all those obsessions, is basically, fed through some sort of filter, and then somehow I make my art.
Yeah. No, it's great. And thanks for helping me see certain things a little bit differently too. I think
Of course.
that's part of the jazz. Um I love horror myself. There's a kind of think there's subgenres within the show. I've done over 180 episodes. But one of them is horror, and I guess it's even a little bit more narrow. It's Friday the 13th fan films. I've had a couple
Oh,
of the
nice.
directors or the folks who do that. But I've had some other strong horror themes when it comes to movies, and the strangest ones that I see, they're definitely in the horror genre. I dive deep into that. Always just always love that stuff, and glad to kind of pull some of some of those images and such there. I wanted to ask you related to art, and I wanted to see a little bit more about what you think the role of art is, and there's just one other piece of the question, like whether that's changed recently. I talk to artists, and sometimes they're like, 2023, walk outside, and you're gonna see 8 weird ass things in like 10 minutes. The things seem strange, or things are
Yeah.
changing, or the climate. And but what is the role of art, and is any tweaks to it lately in your thinking?
Yeah, I think art is incredibly important to the core of society. It's one of the most important things to me. Aside from spending time with loved ones, the act of creation on any level is pretty much my absolute favorite thing to do on this earth. And I think the role of art, it can be whatever you want it to be. I think it's a mirror. I think, it's a channel to help people access things in their subconscious, or things that they maybe don't want to look at or deal with. It can sort of act as an agent to bring things to the surface, and it's certainly a reflection of, like I mentioned earlier, just that full scope, that full range of emotions and experiences that we have. It's not like, it's not like you have a good day every day. It's not like you have a bad day every day. Now, of
Sure.
course, there are some people out there that do
Sure.
have a bad day every
Of
day,
course.
and
Right.
I have so
Understood.
much empathy for that experience. But most people, it's going to be a pretty wide range of experiences and emotions. And, how do we cope with
Yeah.
existing on this earth? And I
Yeah.
think, I almost feel like art is like the candy, it's just like that delicious sweet treat that you get to soothe your mind with. At least that's the experience for me. Or on the other side of the track, like that sour candy where you're like, oh,
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about it that way, and now I'm having this, heavy revelation. I do think we are in a giant transition right now, both, astrologically and on a society level. And I have no idea how this is going to pan out.
Yeah.
I really hope it's going to be better for more people. The AI art thing is obviously like really intense, especially how it came on like a ton of bricks.
Like a ton
Um,
of bricks.
yeah, and
Audio,
so
video, all of it. Yeah.
yeah. So, I think there probably will be some good applications for it, but just taking any image on the internet and feeding it into a machine or like an app, like putting artist name and drop down menus. I mean, there's some extreme moral questions I have there.
Yeah, like of
Um,
use right from the get-go, or where the images come
exactly.
from. They don't
Fair
come from
use.
there's no robot hand that originated there's no
Hmm.
AI hand that originated the thing. It's when I've had discussions, been that there's human hands in the content, in the
Hmm.
content, in the
Yeah.
creation. So it's it's definitely tricky. I got an email yesterday about podcasting and these ideas that come in right off the bat. I was like, what the heck can you do now? But it was like, if we were talking right now and, I don't know, I wanted to like redo or place in, it kind of creates this whole thing of my voice. And then I could just place in my voice and say different things at different times without saying them. And I'm like, whoa, my goodness. Like, so now is it like a collage that I can, it was all rather strange. I didn't even process the
Interesting.
thought.
So it's not even like
Yeah.
not even like a natural conversation anymore. It's like a polished conversation.
Well, it's like there's like these filters to take out the ums and the uhs. I talk like I'm from Pawtucket, Rhode Island. Like if you get down to it with you, my accent will drop more into it. I ain't gonna change that shit.
Yeah, I love your accent. I was very comforted when I heard your episode with Mark J. Palm, because I was like, oh my God, he has to be from New England.
Well, you know what, too? My accent would have dropped more in because I kind of gush over Mark J. Palm, but like is because I was immediately so comfortable. Like I'm talking to my buddy on a couch and we're playing a video game. So I would just kind of like got into that. But Mark J. Palm, while we're on it, has created the first, what I think one of the first or few podcast superheroes. So this podcast has created a superhero. My idea that Mark J. Palm has realized for me is cyborg gorilla is a cyborg Harambe, revenge gorilla. And this cyborg Harambe, which will be revealed soon, created by Mark J. Palm, has SRTN, something rather than nothing rocket on the right arm. Very intimidating, very splash into the world. First podcast superhero, maybe. So
that's so cool. I love him. He is such a great guy, incredible artist, one of the hardest working cartoonists out there, and his work is just phenomenal. And he's just a really wonderful person. I was lucky enough to get to hang out with him out in Seattle, and he's just literally just the kindest, sweetest soul.
Yeah, I talked to him there, and I've made big connections, and I've been getting a lot of his art, and very excited. I'm going to be able to go up to Seattle for a few days later in March. So I'm going to hope to meet up with Mark, and maybe we can start creating a cyborg Harambe costume or something like that.
Oh my God, that's incredible!
It's going to get weird, and I figured I'd recruit him, and now I'm talking to you. I don't know what we'll do, but we'll go somewhere with all this.
I love it.
Yeah. I wanted to mention and see maybe as a little bit to draw people to your work and with Silver Sprocket. I encountered Silver Sprocket I don't know, just a few years ago, and I might have been up in Seattle at some shop or wherever I was, and great jump out at you art, politically vibrant, just like electric energy, great pins and things, and when I saw that they were doing publishing, just seeing that the care they put to the artists and what they create. So as far as getting your stuff, Acid Nun and Zines, where do folks go for that? I just want to make sure I don't miss that. Is it over to Silver Sprocket? Yeah.
Yeah, so the Silver Sprocket website, they have, an online shop, and you can order my book through their website, at their store. I always recommend, getting in touch with your local indie comic book and comic and book shops, like Quimby's of course carries my book, Forbidden Planet, It's Been a Desert Island, so you can always try, and I think supporting Silver Sprocket, please do it, but you also want to support your small shops so they stay open, so you can always give them a call, see if they carry my book. I have my own big cartel shop that's on my website. I do everything just through my name, which is Corinne Halbert. So like my website's CorinneHalbert.com. And I unfortunately don't do international shipping, just because it got really stressful and expensive for me. So I had to take that off my plate. I mean, I only have so much energy, because I do everything myself.
It's a lot. You try to give as much service as you can, but
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, thanks for that. I definitely have a couple more questions, but I'm going to indulge myself. And you had mentioned your husband in the Strange Tapes zine. Now, I can tell you that my contact with all that wonderful content, like I was going to be like, yo, you want to come on this show? But can you tell us a little bit about this, as like maybe just so folks can know like where to find like Strange Tape stuff? I love it so much.
Yeah.
I can't believe that like I'm sticking my nose up against the door and being like, it's right here. So like I feel like I'm looking in through the window. You're gonna open this bookstore soon, but could you just tell us, all of whatever you can and what about that?
Yeah. No, Strange Tapes is awesome. It's an incredible zine where he he's invited a lot of his friends, he's done interviews, he has guest writers. It's absolutely amazing. He did this, I think it's sold out, but he did a kind of offshoot called Cinema Grab Ass that I did.
I got a copy. I got a copy.
Oh, you do?
I got a copy of Cinema Grab Ass.
That has my favorite movie review I've ever done of Under Siege.
Yes. Which, this is so familiar right now.
Yay! We watched Under Siege together, and I was so pumped up after watching that movie. I loved it so much. It was so fun. It's so absurd. And then my best movie reviews come when I just like write it immediately after. And, he published it in there. And then there's a hilarious bit about, oh God, what's that awful Carrot Top movie?
Oh,
he tried to make me watch Carrot Top, Chairman of the Board. And I was just like, there's certain movies that just irritate me, to this level that I actually sort of get angry. And we got about 2 minutes into Chairman of the Board, and I was like, I can't watch this movie. I'm going to go crazy.
If you go back to Under Siege, you don't know how many parties I killed if I'm talking about like Tolstoy and Plato. And then I launch into Seagal, and it's a party killer, but I'm still going, just like I was on the other stuff. I mean, we
love his movies in this house.
Love
As
Seagal.
A man, I don't know what his whole story is.
I don't even pretend to know any of that.
Yeah, but his movies are just incredible. We actually just watched one from, I think, 2009 called A Dangerous Man. And it was so fun. It wasn't quite the Under Siege level, it's not the best production value, but it was a similar level of fun. And so that was a really, really hilarious one. Within the first like 5 minutes of the movie, like 8 years of stuff happens. Like they're still rolling the credits.
This is a weird
8 years of things.
This is a weird time frame. Give me 3 months. 8 years? I can't even put it into a decade.
It's really funny. I mean, and then just some of his one-liners and like, his speaking parts.
He truly is the man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He truly is the man. Wow. But I tell you, go ahead.
Oh, just to get back to, the question was about Strange Tapes. So he has, I do most of my posting and stuff most heavily on Instagram, and that's just my name, Corinne Halbert. And then he has his Instagram page, which I think is Strange Tapes Zine. And so he does a lot of posting on there. He's got the YouTube channel, which I believe is also Strange Tapes Zine. And then he's got a big cartel shop, Strange Tapes Zine, where he sells his zines. And he also sometimes does VHS releases. Like he just did one for an amazing film called Computer Hearts with his buddy Lunchmeat. So yeah, he does incredible stuff. So I can't recommend that enough.
I can't recommend it enough, folks. And I would say that the zines are in the back corner of the room that I'm recording. And I would also say behind my impromptu sound buffer of the studio, there is, I can't remember which one exactly. There, right behind this wall, is a Seagal VHS tape that I can visually see. I
Oh my
just can't
God,
remember which one.
amazing.
So, like,
There's so many.
this is some sort of sanctuary. The VHS is behind it. So thank you
Amazing.
for the very personal indulgence in everybody listening. If you have a chance or you need to have a good laugh and some fun at some wild, amazing, and sometimes very absurd material.
Oh yeah. I mean, I can't
Strange
say
tape.
that it, someone might not offend some people, but if you can just
Oh.
have fun and appreciate it for what it is.
It's
Oops,
not
sorry.
a waltz through the park. It's kind of like you got to dig through. You gotta just kind of wade through the swamp. It's not a waltz here. No.
You
So
just gotta meet it where it's at. You know what I mean?
all right, that's our from Corinne and Ken. That's your cultural input and cultural flow for now. I got to ask you the big question of the show, and let you take a crack at it.
Sure.
Why is there something rather than nothing?
Well, see, I wanna like weave in and out of this because I think sometimes nothing is the great starting point to get something, and it's always nice to have something rather than nothing. I think the coolest thing about artists is that they literally are, in a lot of ways, creating something out of nothing. Like, it didn't exist before. It's not really out of nothing because it's from their, internal landscape, their memories, their desires. So that is something. But you literally are creating something sort of out of thin air. It didn't exist before, and now it exists. And that's sort of one of the most powerful things that human beings can do in this world. And I'm happy that I get to live a life where I'm fortunate enough to, be able to just diligently work on my paintings, comics, writing, because the act of creation is just the most important thing to me, aside from the people that I love in my life.
Oh, well, thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
I've thought about the question just in the general way you speak about it. I've thought about it from the get-go in that way, as far as like the idea of creation. And no, it's not that there's nothing there, but there is nothing that you've transformed into something different. You've pulled sound into ear like we are right now, or you've, dropped the ink onto the blank paper and it looks this way now. And I think there's something like right at that point that's I like that. I like that point. Another thing I wanted to say, Corinne, is not too many folks have answered like the what is art question the way you did. Like, art is this, art is this, art is this. And I just love that because I'm a philosopher, so I think about it. I want to string together the words and how is the beauty created and how this, but not too many folks answer it that way. And just like those declarations, like were really helpful to me. Like you hear them and it's like, oh, it is this, and it is this, and it is this. So
I'm so glad.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I wanted to ask you, and it seems like a cliche question, and it is a bit indulgent, but you said you had like, just this great, like this big book collection, and one of the things with like cult films is that nobody knows about them. Like not nobody, but people are in the scene know these because they're classics.
Yeah.
But like, could you mention just like a few of the type of things like for folks as far as like that have been like impactful on you within that or within your collection?
Absolutely.
Because I know how you relate to the things that you'll talk about, so that's why I'm asking. So
Yeah, absolutely. So the things I like to collect at the very top of the list is original art. I am not sort of in the financial situation at the moment that I can collect on that level that I'd like, but I have a pretty extensive original art collection. I actually have an original Al Columbia, which is basically my prized possession,
Wow.
because he's one of my top three favorite artists. I have a Heather Benjamin, I have a bunch of Gregory Jacobsons, I have quite a few
Yeah.
original pieces that I'm very very near and dear to my heart. And then comics, zines, books. I like vintage, like even within that, there's like different subsets. Like I collect vintage paperbacks. I
Yeah.
collect vintage smut. I have those I have them actually right here, like bizarre and exotique, those fetish, like John Willie artwork, those fetish
Yeah.
books that have been collected of the old magazines. And then I also collect a ton of vintage magazines, a lot of women's magazines like McCall's, but also things like Movie Star Parade, from the 1930s all the way up to the 70s.
Those are
Um,
fascinating.
yeah, and I use those as reference in my artwork, and I'm very particular about aesthetics. And I should mention also that when I was a kid growing up, my mom and my dad got divorced like right before my third birthday, and that's why we left Alaska to go to Massachusetts, and we lived with my grandparents who helped take care of my brother and I for about 9 years, something like that. Because when we moved out, I was 11. But anyways, my grandparents' house, they bought it in, I think, the 1950s. And so it had this like very 50s, 60s decor, and they never updated it.
Oh,
Like
wow.
my bedroom had like the pop, the big bright color flowers, like neon green, neon pink, neon yellow, and
Whoa.
then like the den room was like orange and brown, and the kitchen was like that acid yellow that's like almost green. It's like that weird yellow, and it's like really
Yeah.
vivid. And like the tile on the floor was like yellow and brown. And so a huge part of my nostalgic love of sort of the 70s 60s era comes from that experience. Like it's in my DNA. So it literally gives me sort of relief as a human
Yeah.
existing when I see vintage things. And so if that helps explain my obsession and love of that stuff. And in terms of
Yeah.
movies, my top three movies, they're from a couple different eras, 70s, 80s. But The Devils by Ken Russell.
Mhm.
He is just one of the most brilliant filmmakers that ever lived. Possession. I cannot, I can't say, it's a Polish director, and I'm going to butcher his name, so I'm not going to try. And then Maniac, William Lustig,
Oh,
and
yeah.
starring Joe Spinell. And I love so many different movies. I could rattle off, movies after movies. AGFA is an incredible resource if you want to get into like, Doris Wishman, and they just release all this absolutely incredible stuff. But yeah, I love a vintage aesthetic
Oh,
deeply.
thank you. I remember one time, I saw the band Electric Wizard.
I love Electric Wizard.
I it was one of the greatest shows I've ever
Yeah, they
seen.
do
It
the
was,
screen in the back.
yeah, yeah.
So
And they had
cool.
the screen, and I wasn't, I was so drawn, and it was so subversive, like of an aesthetic. Like the whole thing was just right at you. And of course the sounds of Electric Wizard. I was completely blown away. As a matter of fact, I'm going to look for some of my old video from that. It was one of the most. I've seen them once, and it was one of the most amazing things. But I never. Of course, you see video, right? You're around art and stuff like that. You see video installations and this and that. But there was something about how it's like so central in its impact on the overall aesthetic. It's like I saw Electric Wizard now. So yeah.
Yeah, I saw them. Gosh, when was it? It was like maybe 2017. I've seen them.
About right.
I think I've seen them twice. I definitely saw them about 2017-ish. It's hard for me, my memory, as I age, and I eat a lot of edibles, so it's like all the like trauma and aging and weed and like my memory.
There's a lot of impacts. There's a lot of impacts. Yes.
So I can't remember like the years I went to see shows anymore, but whatever. It was one of the best shows I've ever seen, and the video footage they show, like the satanic rituals, and I love it so much.
It was wild. It just felt wild, and I didn't know how to like handle it all in my head. Like it was all just felt wild and a bit chaotic, and so impressive. So yeah, it's glad to connect.
Their sound is just so good. It's just the whole package.
Yes, I gotta somehow corral Electric Wizard onto something rather than nothing. Maybe that's our next. Maybe that's our next scheme. So I wanted to thank you so much, Corinne. Just having a fun and great conversation about some stuff that to really dig in about and have fun about, and Seagal. And Acid Nun and VHS tapes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really
thank you for having me on here. It's my pleasure. It's such a delightful conversation.
Yeah, it's good to have fun, and a lot of the art stuff, and I'll put a bunch of this in the show notes. If things feel kind of strange lately, at least for me, sometimes it's good to just kind of grab that weird electricity and laugh at it, or just kind of go for the ride for a bit to let some of that strange stuff out, right?
Absolutely. I try to get into a flow state instead of. I mean, I have put up so much resistance to stuff over the course of my life. I'm at that point where I had this realization the other day. I was like, I just need to make a lot more room for things to go wrong, like just make the space for it, so that I'm not so, upset when it goes wrong, because it's going to go wrong.
I think you dropped into a big idea not to be missed there. Like, express that way, because I think we try to do it, and I think and live in a whatever pace that we are, there's no space, right? Like this can't go wrong in my head because this is connected to that thing. And I think what you're saying is like, yo, it's gonna get fucked up a bit. So
exactly,
like, let it a little bit, or throw some room in there, because it's gonna happen.
Exactly, 100%.
All right, we've unlocked the key to life philosophy. Thank you, Corinne Halbert. We didn't know, listeners, that we would get to this point, but we have.
Yay!
So I would expect more Zines videotape type episodes coming up soon, and just wanted to thank you again, Corinne. Great pleasure to meet you.
Such a pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This is Something Rather Than Nothing.